right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back with another episode of What Are We Screaming About? I'm your host, Marlon Archie. Really excited about today's episode. It's been in the news. It's been in the news here lately about holdbacks and eighth graders in particular, eighth grade student athletes repeating the eighth grade. It's been all over the news. I've got a great one here, Mike Watford, youth football coach, and his son. His son has been an eighth grade holdback, so we want to jump right into that today and just try to get to the root of, you can answer for your son and for your family, but also just giving us maybe some thoughts and opinions on why. So I guess that's the best way to start is, why did you hold back? Why did you make that decision to hold your son back?
Well, I think in the case of my son, simply put, it was what was right for him. And I'm a big advocate of doing what's right for the individual child. My son was, what made him, I don't know about unique, but his case, he got pushed up when he was young. He had a late birthday. He was really smart, so he got pushed up. But then we found out that he had ADHD, got diagnosed with ADHD. And I always use the word diagnosed when I talk about my son with ADHD because I think it's important to make that distinction, especially in today's day and age. Unfortunately, ADHD is something that kind of gets the term gets thrown around a lot. Everybody has ADHD nowadays, and I don't know about that, but I do think that that does a little bit of an injustice to the people that are actually diagnosed. And so when we found that out, that's when we really started noticing, that he was a 4.0 student, a great student, but it always took him quite a bit longer to finish his work.
Well, you have all the naysayers out there, you shouldn't do that. I mean, obviously, in this case of your son with ADHD, you're looking out for his academic growth. You're looking out for his social growth. Because, the naysayers out there, it's all about the D1 scholarship. It's all about the NIL deal now. I mean, was that part of your consideration? Because I know he's a phenomenal quarterback.
Well, I can't say that we hoped that would not help his football career. His football career was going very well. Right. Turns out, to be honest, had he come in a year before, it might have actually been better for him with his football. In terms of just the situation of how he came in and who was here and who was not. But there's no question that in his case it was absolutely the right thing to do. I think maybe the young birthday mixed with the ADHD, he was always socially and just maybe a little more less mature than some of the other kids and socially and I think that having that year to mature, not just physically but mentally, emotionally, it was absolutely the best decision that we ever made for him. And I will say too, if there's anybody watching that has a young child and especially a boy, because boys tend to mature a little bit slower. If you're given that option, if they have a late birthday, if you're given that option of pushing them up or holding them back, I would not push them up again. If I had it to do over again, what I've learned, like I said, especially about the boys, that they often need a little more time to mature. And give them the advantage of, instead of being the youngest kid in the class, which my son Grayson was most of his life, of being the kid that has a little bit more maturity, who's not. Grayson was never the smallest kid or anything like that, but it was certainly a little bit of a social and emotional disadvantage for him.
But see, you mentioned that, and that's something that's been out there in the news, is the social part. And you can speak for your son, but did it affect him at all, knowing that he was repeating the eighth grade, that he might be a little bit bigger? If you have a kid that maybe is a little bit larger than your son, but they're walking around the eighth grade classroom and they're much bigger than everyone else, is there any sort of mental, emotional stress that they would have to deal with, or that your son had to deal with?
I think if we were the worries that we, or the concerns, I should say, that we had about his stresses would have been, would he be ashamed of it?
Right.
You know,
Right.
would he feel like a dummy? You know, would he? Oh, I couldn't make it
Yeah.
into the next grade, so my parents held me back. Because when I was coming up, that was really the only reason that kids got held back.
Exactly.
Because
You
they weren't.
failed.
They failed.
You failed.
Yeah,
Right.
they
So
weren't.
you're repeating.
They're repeating the grade, but for him it was clearly something else, and you know, luckily with him, he's never been a kid that worries about that kind of thing. You know, unlike me as when I was a child, and so no, he didn't really worry about that, and I think that, you know, physically. It wasn't. He was never concerned about, well, I'll be bigger than everybody else or anything like that either, because he's, you know, it's not like he's, you know, he was in the 8th grade and he was 6'3" or anything.
Right.
And I do think, you know, there is an argument to be made that, you know, there's a point at which it becomes absurd. You know,
Yeah.
I think the question and debate is going to be like, where is that line? And the line I think is individual. I always think, somebody told me when I first started coaching, and I'm sure you've heard this, it's not the X's and the O's, it's the Jimmys and the Joes. And that's what I try to, when I'm coaching, I always try to think about that. It's not about my process, it's not about my system necessarily, it's about who I got.
Yeah.
And I got to figure out what's right for them, what works best for the team.
That's right.
And I do think that sometimes, you know, we as coaches and educators and administrators sometimes start thinking about our system and how we look at things. We do this, we don't do that. Right. You know, this is what kind of school we are, this is what kind of program we have, and sometimes you got to look at the individual, and you got to say, this kid, you know, needs this. And no, it's not. Maybe he is an athlete, but it's not all about that.
Because I make that same argument. You know, if your child is in the 8th grade and maybe they're struggling a little bit, they're younger, on the younger side, and they're struggling a little bit in math. That math is just not clicking in the 8th grade. What would be wrong with holding that kid back so that they can mature a little bit more?
Yeah.
I think the stigma that's happening with athletes is now you're chasing the money.
Exactly.
You know, oh, you know that D1, 1% only go D1. 7% are playing in the college level, period. So you're chasing the money. That's why you're holding them back.
Yeah. Or the argument that, oh, you couldn't hang with kids your age.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, and look, I think that there are people who, that it's not that hasn't happened. But I will also say that sometimes physical growth is a part of it. And if you are an athlete, physical growth is a very important thing.
Sure.
If you play football, football is a very physical and violent sport. And if you are undersized, then, you know, that is a consideration. Your safety at that point is a consideration.
Absolutely.
And I think that that's something to think about when we're thinking about reclasses, if they're not developed. Look, when kids, you're talking about 8th graders, they're 12, 13 years old. What happens around that age? That's puberty. And some kids are on one side of it, and some kids are on the other side of it.
Absolutely.
And when you've got a kid who's, you know, 12 in the 8th grade, you know, playing, he's on the other side on the front side of puberty, and you've got kids he's playing against that are 13 that are on the back end of puberty. It's a big deal. Those kids are not the same. Their muscles are stronger. You know, and safety, I think, really does become an issue at that point.
But you know what, Mike? I mean, my thing is this. What's wrong with you trying to get the best for your child? What's wrong with saying, hey, my child has some abilities here. Let's do what's best for him so that maybe he can get that NIL deal and make some thousands and millions. Because at the end of the day, student athlete, you're in a high school to graduate, to go to college. You go to college for what reason? Normally to get a good job, to pursue something that you enjoy. So I think some of the naysayers are just a bit, in my opinion, just a tad bit jealous, if you will, that a kid now can be held back to hopefully pursue their dream to make those millions. Why shouldn't we have those dreams?
I think you're exactly right. I think that there are those out there that view athletes as sort of privileged.
Yeah.
The rules don't apply to
Yeah.
them. And,
Yeah.
and the truth is, and and anybody that's been on a team understands that, in fact, exactly the opposite is true. More rules apply to them. They have to abide by the strictest of rules. First of all, if they've got parents that understand what they need to be an
Right.
athlete, it starts at home.
Right.
They're eating right. They're sleeping more. They're not out with their peers, on a Thursday night
Right.
till 10 p.m. because they've got a game on Friday night.
That's right.
And then their coaches, and then the rules,
Right. Right.
that they have to abide by. So really, more rules apply to these kids. They work really, really hard. You're talking about very high achieving kids, the athletes that have the ability to go and play in college, especially at like a D1 level.
Yeah.
These are not kids that just sort of fell out of the truck and could throw a football over a barn. It's not as
Right.
simple as that.
Right.
You work really hard. My son has had a private quarterback coach since he was 8 years old. And, it's always been his passion. Anytime he has a free moment, that's what he's doing.
Yeah.
He's 100% locked on it.
But see, I always get people say that when they hear, oh, my child has a personal trainer for athletics. Well, what about the academics? Do they have a personal, counselor? Do they have a personal math teacher?
Well, I would say if my son needed that, absolutely he would have that. You know what I mean? As long as we could afford it, and if we and to be honest with you, as much as I don't think he would like it, but if he was failing algebra and we could only afford either a tutor or a quarterback coach, we were going to have to go with a tutor for a little while, because academics are what ultimately is going to get him to where he needs to be whenever football is over with, and that's what we're trying to always prepare for. He doesn't really believe football will ever be over with right now.
Right.
He thinks football's going to last forever, and I'm
Right.
trying to slowly
Yeah.
get him to realize that one day, no matter how far you go, no matter how good you are,
Yeah.
you won't. Football will be over for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's my opinion. I'm on the side of why not?
Yeah.
Why? We all have to do what's best for our children.
That's right.
Plain and simple. And now times have changed, and schools are allowing for the holdbacks.
Yeah.
The term that they've been using in the news lately is 8th grade red shirts.
Okay.
Fine. So why do kids redshirt in college? To get them physically
Yeah.
stronger, mentally prepared.
Yeah.
So why not do it when they're younger?
Absolutely.
That's been my argument. Why not?
Well, I think for the first thing that I asked myself when we were going through this process was, my God, do I want to give him one more year of school? I mean, do I want to put that on him? So the decision for that was his.
Right.
We sat down and we laid it out. How it's going to help you. What the advantages, the disadvantages were, and he very quickly he's a smart kid, and very quickly he realized that this was something that he needed to do, that all the advantages were in his favor to do this. And I think that he knew that it wasn't just about football. It was about something about the year before, the few years prior to his reclass was he wasn't quite comfortable in his skin. Man, he this year here, that changed for him.
Yeah.
He really came out of his skin and really socially became like a different kid. And I think that I would do it 100 times out of 100 if I had to do
Wow.
it again when it was him.
Wow.
With him, with my son.
Hear that? 100 out of 100.
Well, I mean, you gotta be honest. You gotta be honest with what your kid needs, and I think that you gotta have talks with your parents and the administrator, or the teachers and the administrators, and hopefully they can see that too. That this is about what is best for this child. We always talk about what are we doing when we're coaching. We're trying to create better young men and young women. That's what we're there to do. We say that all the time.
right.
So if we're doing that, let's put our money where our mouth is. Let's do what's best for that kid.
I agree.
In the classroom as well.
I agree. agree.
If they're a little behind and they need a little bit more in one or more areas, then we have to look at it holistically and say, what's best for this kid? You may say, well, if I'm the math teacher, well, I don't see that he's struggling in math, so I'm not down with this. I'm not okay with this. Well, look at all the other areas. Look at the kid as a whole person and understand that this is something that's going to help him mentally, emotionally, socially, as well as physically.
Absolutely.
And we got to learn to kind of retrain ourselves and think of it not as just. I think some people may think of it as like, this is just you're just cheating for football,
Right.
basically.
Well, that's what they're saying.
Yeah.
That's what people are saying.
And well, I'm not going to say that's never happened. I don't know if it happens. It probably has happened. It's not the sort of what we're doing. I can tell you that. And the advantages that he's gained have been vastly more away from the sport than for the sport. I'm not gonna say he hasn't gained some advantages with the sport as well, but
But you're playing within the rules.
that's right.
You're not breaking the rules. And so, those that say, oh, you're trying to gain an advantage. Well, how am I trying to gain an advantage if I'm still playing within the age limits of a kid? Here in California, CIF.
Mm-hmm.
The age is, you cannot turn 19 before June 15th. Mm-hmm. So if you're playing within that structure, what's wrong with it?
Exactly.
And
isn't that the way life is? I mean, like, that's the reality of life. Everyone is trying to get the advantage for whatever it is they're trying to do. And I don't think that you really see that much pushback in other areas. You kind of mentioned, maybe jealousy or maybe the perception of athletes. There's always been a little bit of friction, I would say, between in any academic environment. There's always a little bit of, well, there's the athletes and there's the academics, and I think that what would help the kids the most, this is just my opinion, is if we looked at the whole school as a team.
Absolutely.
Not just the guys playing football and the girls playing soccer. The whole school is a team. What's right for every individual on our team?
Absolutely.
Maybe he's strong in what I'm coaching or what I'm teaching, but he needs a little work in these other areas, and let's let them have that and learn to kind of look at it holistically, I guess.
No, I would agree. Something I wanted to ask you that you had mentioned, but what about his peers? What about Grayson's peers? Have they, because we mentioned earlier, back in our time when you repeated a grade, oh, you must have failed. Oh, you're.
Yeah.
So what's it been like with his friends? Has there been any, oh man, you're repeating the 8th grade or any of that?
I'll say not from anyone that mattered to him, His best friend did the same thing in another school and was a similar situation, where he had some issues that he needed an extra year for.
Yeah.
And also a great athlete, really smart kid too, but he needed an extra year.
Yeah.
His parents understood that,
Yeah.
and he did that, and it was the best thing for him. Yeah. Same situation as Grayson. He blossomed. Right. Because he got that extra year. I think that in sports now, among the athletes, there's not much pushback there. I think people understand that it's part of the game now. Yeah. And when you have an opportunity to get better and to gain the advantage, you take that opportunity. Some kids need it, some kids don't. Again, my son was the youngest. We often look at it as, rather than a reclassification, we always look at it as sort of a correction, because he's with the class now that he would have been had we put him with the group that he started with.
Yeah. But I just look at it, Mike, as giving your son the best opportunity.
That's right.
You're looking to give him the best opportunity. I think sometimes as well with sports, it's because of the percentages. Well, only 1% goes to the pros. Okay, we understand that. I'm sure everyone who has a dream of being a doctor may not make it.
I was going to say the same thing.
They may not make it. Or dreams of being actors.
That's right.
and you may not make it.
Yeah.
But you still want to give yourself the best opportunity possible. That is why you mentioned about his academics. He is a student athlete. He's a student athlete. And there's going to come a day when we all have to hang up our cleats.
That's right.
And what is it that you have to fall back on? But it doesn't mean that you can't have that dream.
Yeah. Well, look, I can remember with absolute vivid clarity the first game that my son played at quarterback. He was, I think, 6 years old. He scored 5 touchdowns.
Wow.
Got in the car and said, "Daddy, now that I've conquered football, it's time for me to start preparing for the NFL." I'm like, "Whoa, buddy, wait a second."
That's 6.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I was like, "Hey, hang on a second. You have one game."
Yeah.
But I also, as a parent, when he told me that this was his dream,
Yeah.
you know, being someone who was a dreamer myself, who had, you know, I went from athletics to film and television, and I knew how hard that was, and I knew what people told me about it, and I was faced in that moment. It was like this was a big dad moment for me. Am I going to say, "Hey, buddy, nobody plays in the NFL"?
Yeah.
And I'm sorry to tell you, that dream is not
Yeah.
realistic. And I decided not to. I decided to tell him, that's really tough, man. That's a hard thing to do. But if that's really what you want, and I tell you what, we're going to start working.
Yeah.
And it's going to take a whole lot of work, and you may still not make it.
Yeah.
But if that's really what you want, we'll work, and you'll know that you gave it your best shot no matter what. And if you make it, it will. If you don't make it, it won't be because you didn't work hard enough. So.
Well, I'm a huge proponent for whatever is going to, you know, if the dream is to be a college football player, a Division I college football player, whatever it is that's going to help you achieve that, both mentally and physically. I mean, I was blessed. I had the good fortune to play Division I college football. Shout out to Pete Carroll. Coach Carroll brought me in to NC State to play as a Division I football player. I was undersized. My freshman year, I took a beating. I remember the first day in pads, and I got hit. And I called home and said, "I don't want to do this," because I wasn't physically ready.
Yeah.
Even though I was strong in the weight room and all of that, it's different.
Yeah.
And so for a young man like your son, like Grayson, to, again, he's not breaking any sort of rules. You're not breaking any sort of rules. If it helps him get a little bit bigger, stronger physically and mentally, to play at that level, why not do it?
Yeah, there's really no reason to not give him that advantage. And you know, the good thing about him is that he doesn't worry about the kind of things that I might worry about, of like, oh, what are people saying about him? He doesn't care.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't know if that's this generation or if it's just him, but he's doing what he loves. He's where he wants to be right now. He's getting ready to come into high school. He left 8th grade, graduated from 8th grade the other night with honors. So, you know, and he's always been that kind of student. And he's right where he needs to be, right when he needs to be there, and he knows that. He couldn't be happier about it. So for him, it was a beautiful thing to do.
And that's music to my ears, because that is the epitome of a student athlete. He's graduating with honors.
Yeah.
He's a terrific ball player.
Yeah.
My question is, I know he's been working out here lately with some high school kids.
Yeah.
Have you seen that growth? Comparing it to if he would have come in last year without repeating this year, do you think he would be at the same level where he is now?
It's hard to say, you know, because physically, obviously, he did mature. So it's hard to say for sure. I've learned not to doubt that kid, because anytime I've ever had a doubt, he's always, you know, he's always erased that doubt very quickly. But you know, I will say that what we were able to do in preparing him for this, and maybe we would have been able to do it anyway, is, you know, when he played his last youth football game, you know, he went to the Super Bowl, got to play at SoFi, and as soon as that game was over with, I told him in the car ride home, "You're now a high school football player right now." And you got to look at that right now. So we're training only with high school kids now. You know, we're not training with 8th grade, 7th graders. That's not going to get you where you need to be, because your next game that you play is going to be as part of a high school football team.
Yeah.
So, you know, when we started doing our 7-on-7 stuff, we wanted to play with high school kids. We didn't want to play the 13U. We wanted to play 15U and high school. And he took, you know, it was a learning experience for him. The speed was very different, but thank God we did that. So I guess to answer your question, if we'd have been able to prepare him that way, I think it would have been similar. But his physical development definitely plays a part in it. I mean, he's throwing the ball a lot farther because he's had another year to work, and he knows the game a lot better because he's had another year to sit back there and read coverages and figure out what the game's about. So he's as a student of the game and as a physical athlete, it's definitely helped him. I can't say he wouldn't have done well, but you know, it's definitely given him a personal advantage, if not just his confidence. You know, if that's the only thing he got out of it, then that was worth it.
Well, now that you've been through this repeat year of 8th grade, and if I know you coach youth football, so if parents were to come to you now and say, we're thinking about holding back our child, what kind of advice would you give them from your personal experiences now?
Well, I think similar to what I've kind of been saying, I would say it's about the individual. You know, if I know the kid, I'll have an idea of if it's right for him. Now, look, if the kid is, you know, 6'2" and 250 pounds, doing well in school, and you know, seems to be a happy kid that's socially right where he needs to be, that kid probably doesn't need to hold over. You know, if he's a little undersized, hasn't matured yet, hasn't gone through puberty yet, maybe you know, ADHD or something similar to that, or maybe has some social anxieties and doesn't quite feel comfortable going up to that big pond of high school just yet, then I think that it's a really good idea. And even if you are that big kid, even if you are that 6 foot and 250 pound kid, but socially you're petrified of going to high school, maybe taking another year is good for you as well. I would say that consider many factors. You know, we never wanted his reclass to be just about one thing. We didn't want it to be just about football.
Right.
Because I always knew that somehow, some way, he'd find a way there. He loves it too much to not. But we had to make sure that there were other really good, viable reasons for this to make sense for him. And once he realized that, he immediately knew that was the right thing for him. So that would be what I would tell other parents. Take it seriously. But if you do see that it is the right thing for your individual, your child, then don't listen to any of the outside noise about it.
Yeah.
You know, who cares what those people think? Just do what's right for your kid. That's all that we want.
Yeah.
You know, all we want is to put our kid in a situation where they can be the best that they can be.
Yeah.
And if your kid has an opportunity to be something in a sport, and he or she really is showing something, talk to their coaches, their youth coaches, talk to the high school coaches about it. You know, does my kid have ability? Is he going to really be able to play at some point? If that's the case, then give him that advantage.
Absolutely. As we said, why wouldn't you? If you're going to be a doctor, your dream is to be a doctor, to be a dancer on Broadway, whatever it may be.
You know, you mentioned that, and I'm glad that you did, because you said how many people want to always talk about, but how many athletes ever are professional? How many athletes ever get a paycheck to be an athlete? Well, how many people graduate high school saying I want to be a doctor, end up having their own practice, end up having a medical license, or being a surgeon, or whatever it is that they wanted to be? As a matter of fact, how many people go to college and end up working in whatever field it is that they studied in college, or it's certainly when they first started in college. People don't let that be what makes the decision for you, because you don't know what's going to happen 5-6 years down the road. You have no idea.
Yeah.
Do what's best for you right now. Of course, try to prepare for the future, but do what's best for you right now. And kids are good. I will say, make sure the kid loves the sport.
Well, there you go.
Because the last thing you want to do is give them an extra year of school and they don't love the sport. And that's something that I always say to the kids that I coach. At the end of almost every practice, why did we come here today? And they always say, well, to get better. Yeah, but the reason we came here today is because we love football.
There you go.
And if you don't love football, if the day shows up that you don't love football anymore, don't come here.
There you go.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. Just go to whatever it is that you love and let that be your thing now. You don't have to do all of this work if it's not something you love. And certainly you don't want to reclass and make those kind of commitments if you don't really love football and you know that this is where you want to be.
You're right, Mike. And for me, as I said, I was blessed to play Division I. So when people say, well, it's such a long shot, I never really thought about it as a high school player because I just wanted to win a state championship. But I was fortunate enough to have multiple Division I offers. So you can do it.
Yeah.
I know you can do it because I did it.
Yeah.
And I don't see myself being any different than anyone else. The difference was, as you just mentioned, my work ethic matched my dream.
That's right.
So my work ethic was Division I work ethic.
Yeah.
And it started in the weight room. I mean, my buddies, my teammates in high school, we were in the weight room 24/7.
Yeah.
And my work ethic matched what my dream was.
Yeah.
But I didn't really have that dream until I started to see some of my other teammates getting offers. And I thought, wow, wow, University of Pittsburgh is here. Wow, Ohio State's here. And I thought, I want to do that. I want to do that. But I'm telling you, you said it, put your heart and soul into it. You have to be passionate about it. And so I would say to parents, and I haven't had a holdback, but I would say to parents what you said. If you see your child has that passion, has that work ethic, just that grind, give them every opportunity that you can.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think I do think that it's something that I always tell when we talk about the passion and the work ethic. I don't talk about winning a lot as a coach. And I tell my kids sometimes, I never coached a kid in my life who didn't want to win.
Right.
I really don't think that I've ever coached a kid that doesn't want to win. We all want to win, so I'm not here talking about, don't you want to win? I know you want to win. We all want to win. The question is, are you willing to do the things that it takes to have success on the field? If we get in the weight room, if we come and put in extra reps, we stay after practice, we work with our private coaches if we can, if we're fortunate enough to be able to have something like that. We give everything we can to it, then we can talk about having success on the field, which usually leads to wins, which is great. Everyone loves that. I always say there's two doors. There's the door of I want to win, and there's always a long line for that. Then the door next to it says I'm willing to do what it takes to win. It's a very short line for that. A lot shorter than that line of I want to win. They all want to win.
Absolutely.
But it takes more. It takes more work than I think a lot of people realize.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to look here at the camera, and I wish we were a call-in show. Because I know it sounds like that Mike and I both are advocating for the 8th grade red shirts, if you will. Yeah. So if we were a call-in show and someone called in and asked you a question, what question do you think that they would want to know for their child if they wanted to hold them back?
If they were thinking about holding them back.
Yeah.
It would probably be something about, what if they're good? What if their grades are good? Does that mean I'm doing the wrong thing by holding them back because their grades are good? Look, Grayson, when he came in here, was a 4.0 student. Grades were never a problem for him. Now, he was at a school where, they didn't have a whole lot of homework there. He learned the hard way when he got here that that's not the case in all places. And so that extra year was really. I mean, had he gone straight into high school without that preparation of learning how to manage his time, then that would have been detrimental. We have a coach here, C.J. Gables, who I think has done your show before, right?
CJ's been on.
And he's an incredible athlete. And he and I have talked about these things many times. And one of the things that he said was, when he was in high school, he had a 4.0, and he went to college, and he couldn't hack it for a little while academically because the high school did not prepare him that he went to. Did not prepare him for what the college reality was in terms of time management. Yeah, he's smart enough to pass the classes, but does he understand time management? Does he understand what the work flow is going to look like? And that's another thing that worked out beautifully for my son. He was a very smart kid, but he didn't really understand how that workflow was going to look. This has been a great year for him. Now he's going into high school, and he's going to be completely prepared for that.
There you go. He's prepared academically from that holdback year. Thank you. Thank you. I mean, thank you. Because there you have it. He is now the complete student athlete going into high school. And at the end of the day, my opinion, that's what we want.
That's what we want.
That's what we want for our children. Well, Mike, this has been enlightening. I've really, really appreciated it. And, as I said, I've been watching it out in the news. It's all that's being talked about. And I knew that you held your son back. And I knew that you could give us some real insight on it. I don't know.
Hopefully,
should we call it 8th grade red shirt? I mean, should we call it that?
I
don't like it.
I don't really like the hold back either, because I don't feel like we're holding these kids back. A reclass kind of seems like maybe that's a better word, but it seems a little like deliberately PC. I don't know. I think that we're giving the kid what he needs or he or she needs. That's all. We're replacing the child where that child needs to be. And if we really look at it like that, then everybody should be on the side of that. All the teachers, all the administrators, the coaches, the athletes, the parents. That's supposed to be what we want for the children. So if that's what we're doing, if we really have their best interest, it's a non-issue.
There you go. We're leaving it right there. Reclass. It's a reclass. Thanks, Mike. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Good luck to your son.
Thank
I know
you.
he's a heck of a ball player. Can't wait to see what he does.